Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is January 16th, 2015. All of our information is coordinated from the National Weather Service offices out of Juneau, Fairbanks, and Anchorage, and all of our information can be found online at www.arh.noaa.gov. Or you can also call our weather information line at 1-800-472-0391, and the social media is available on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Now on to your headlines this evening. Looking at the weather today, we're going to be seeing rain and snow across the south areas of the state and the southeast. We're going to have gusty winds and blowing snow across the north this weekend, and unstable ice noted along the coast of the Norton Sound as you head into the weekend. So if you have any recreation or sporting that you'll be doing, you'll want to be on the lookout for that problem along the Norton Sound. And also we'll have mixed precipitation across the southwest as we head into your weekend, which that is what I'll start off with here. We have freezing rain advisories across the Kuskokwim Delta from Bethel and east, and also from Sleepmute west across the Kuskokwim Valley. And this will be running until late tonight. Now we also have another winter weather advisory across the southeast, mainly along the Klondike Highway, and that is going to be running through 5 a.m. Between 4 and 6 inches of snow can be expected in those northern areas. Now across the northern tier of the state, we have blowing snow issues across the north. We have a winter weather advisory for blowing snow across the Arctic plains, and this issue is going to be continuing through the afternoon hours on Saturday. So reduced visibilities down to 1/2 mile at times can be expected. Northeasterly flow very strong between 20 and 30 miles per hour with higher gusts, and then along the Bering Strait and along the areas from Kivalina north, we'll also see some snow and blowing snow conditions with visibilities north of Kivalina reduced down to actually near zero at times. So be on the lookout if you're in those areas, as we'll see those continue through the overnight hours and improve during the early morning. Now taking a look out west to see what else is coming our way, mainly it's fairly quiet across the Bering, just this area of lighter gray colors, slow movement south. This is a colder air mass that's just advecting across the entire Bering Sea. So if we look further to the west, the low pressure systems that are going to be moving are kind of staying south of the Aleutian chain here. So taking a look closer at home for the southeast, they're mainly getting the impact from a frontal system that is moving across the eastern areas of the Gulf of Alaska today, and this plume of moisture just billowed on up and towards the northern and northeastern areas of the Gulf of Alaska, bringing some rain to most of the areas across the southeast, with snow just inland across locations. And then we have this cold area racing down through the Alaska Peninsula. So a large area of colder temperatures on the move in towards the Alaska Peninsula. And then just a warm front has parked along, not very warm mind you, has parked along the Brooks Range, and this is where we saw much of the snow precipitation along the Brooks Range and north along the coast. And here's that warm frontal position with some gusty winds as we have a very tight gradient across the isobars this afternoon, all the way across towards the Bering Strait, as this low pressure here across the Bristol Bay area begins to slowly move to the north. It's a 970 millibar low this afternoon, and the other low pressure bringing the warm front towards the southeast is a 982 millibar low, and this is weakening slowly through the afternoon hours. So rain mainly along the eastern areas of the Gulf of Alaska, and here's the colder air across the Bering. Not much precipitation to note, some showers due to instability across the eastern areas of the Bering, so maybe some trace amounts, but nothing accumulating across the Bering, except across this weak disturbance across the western areas where they might have had a little bit more precipitation along the disturbance in this area. So as we head through the night, don't expect much change across the central areas of the Bering. Mixed rain and snow precipitation, very light if any, along the eastern half of the Aleutians, and maybe some light mixed precip, mainly rain to start off for the Alaska Peninsula during the overnight hours. As I had mentioned, the blowing snow issues are going to continue for the night as we head into your early Saturday morning hours. This low pressure will begin to lift to the north, and that will at least decrease the winds just a tad, but be on the lookout for any extensions on the blizzard warnings and the winter storm warnings in this area. It all depends on how fast this low pressure system lifts to the north. However, the warm frontal boundary, this is going to become a stationary front along the Brooks Range, so keeping the coldest temperatures for tonight along and north of the Brooks Range, and very gust winds across those Arctic plains there. And then the low pressure system across the eastern areas of the Gulf of Alaska is going to lift north towards the Gulf, and we'll get some wraparound moisture working its way into the Copper River Valley, and we could possibly see between 2 to 4 inches overnight tonight with that system, and some showery conditions making it in between these two systems as weak waves moves up between these two surface low pressure systems. So otherwise, just scattered light precipitation occurring across the Gulf waters. The main area of precipitation for Saturday is going to be initially during the morning hours for the southeast, and across the south central areas a continuation of precipitation is likely to occur through the day on Saturday as this low pressure system, just the surface low, just kind of retrogrades back towards the west and continues to bring this moisture around the northern end of it. And in the meantime, we also have this cold front that's going to be pushing further to the east, bring these colder temperatures across the Kuskokwim Valley down towards the Bristol Bay area and Kodiak. So we'll see a changeover of precipitation from rain to snow later on the day on Saturday, but we'll keep mixed precipitation across the Prince William Sound area and the western Kenai. The western Kenai should change over to snow. And then along the northern tier of the state, the snow will begin to taper off. However, gusty winds will still continue along that eastern Beaufort Seacoast back towards the Seward Peninsula. As I say, the winds will start to taper off as this low pressure begins to move further to the north. So later on the day, on Saturday, the flow will become weaker across the entire Bering as high pressure becomes the dominant weather pattern here. And then as we head into your day on Sunday, look for a benign weather pattern across most of the state as surface ridging builds back into the southwest. So a less chance for precipitation statewide, and the winds will begin to taper off and not be as strong on your Sunday forecast. Possible another low pressure system will develop and move into the Dixon entrance area, and this will primarily just bring rain across the southeast with some snow shower activity inland, but that shouldn't be until later on the day on Sunday, so there should be a little bit of a break between these next systems. Across the Bering, like I said, just be aware that there's going to be some snow shower activity and quiet for the most part across the rest of the Bering out towards the western Aleutians. A very weak disturbance will push a surface low up towards the the St. Paul Island area, and maybe perhaps they'll see some snow showers due to this low pressure system, but no large accumulation should occur. Now, your temperatures today across the Gulf of Alaska still hung out in the 40s today. Unfortunately, that trend, if you like those warmer temperatures, we are going to begin to cool, which is good news for those that are hoping for snow to come soon. So we're going to be seeing temperatures near 48 today for your Annette and Sitka area. And then just inland, just note how we go immediately to near freezing. So this is the problems that were caused across the Southwest today because they hovered at or just below freezing, but the temperatures were warm aloft. Across the northern tier of the state, temperatures were in the teens, with the coldest temperatures noted along the northern coastal areas, with temperatures actually raising up to -4 near Dead Horse. And back towards the Seward Peninsula, you saw that quick climb up to near 20. So much warmer across the Southwest, with temperatures climbing quickly into the 30s, with the warmer temperatures still just aloft, causing the freezing rain problems. And here across the Alaska Peninsula, they made it up into the upper 30s to lower 40s, and through the chain they were pretty much starting to drop across the central areas of the Bering into the mid-20s, with temperatures hanging on into mid-30s across much of the western areas of the Bering still. Now, as we head into your nighttime hours, we should see those temperatures all drop along the Gulf coastal areas into the lower 30s or just below. The southeast will still hold on to the warmer temperatures in the mid to upper 30s. Across the interior, cold temperatures here in the single digits, moving back in, and much colder across the north and northwestern coast, with temperatures dropping well below zero. Again, especially the wind chills in those areas, we'll see some chilly wind chills down to -20 to -30 degrees. The southwest will be a big range from 10 degrees to 30 degrees along the Alaska Peninsula, and across the Bering, temperatures are going to still continue to drop into the mid-20s. Temperatures tomorrow will climb up in, they won't have much of a climb across the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, hanging out in the mid to upper 30s across much of the state. Near steady temperatures in the mid-30s across the south central areas, single digits holding on across the eastern and the northern areas, climbing up to near zero, and once again the southeast back into the lower 40s. Tomorrow's flying weather, mainly MVFR conditions across the southern tier of the state and all the coastal areas, with IFR conditions along the Bering Strait and the Arctic coast across the eastern half of the Gulf of Alaska as well. Also across the western areas, be aware we'll still see some MVFR and IFR conditions with that next low pressure system. Now on to your passes in more depth. Anaktuvik will be MVFR, and Adigan will be MVFR as well. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will both be IFR, and Rainy Pass will be IFR. And then we'll see Windy Pass, MVFR, improving possibly to VFR later in the day. And Isabel Pass will be mainly MVFR with possible improvement to VFR later. And Mintasa will go MVFR to VFR later. And we'll see Tanita stay at MVFR for most of the day. Portage will be IFR with MVFR along the western entrance. And Chilkoot and White Pass will be IFR for most of the day. Tomorrow's freezing levels are hugging across the southeast and along the northern Gulf Coast and back towards the southern Bering, with the 2,000 to 4,000 foot levels well to the south and east of the Gulf of Alaska. So the icing will be between 3,000 to 6,000 feet across most of the Gulf areas, with widespread moderate conditions across the eastern Gulf and parts of the southwest, and also moderate conditions along the north and northwestern coasts, and also look for the disturbance out west causing problems along the western Aleutians. Looking at your jet stream flow, mainly out of the west, the strongest jet is just south of the Kamchatka Peninsula here, so nothing really driving these systems further north. So we have a large troughing and just a push from the north, so the low pressure systems aren't really moving across our area, not much steering flow here. A westerly flow at the 9,000 foot level between 15 and 25 knots for the most part. Across the southeast, a little bit stronger as there's ridging just to the south near the Dixon entrance. Change of direction around this low pressure system, strongest winds along that northwestern coast. So be aware for choppy conditions across the northwest and Arctic territories between 40 and 60 knots across this low pressure system at 3,000 foot, lighter flow across the Bering, and then a southerly flow into the state between 10 and 15 knots. So quieter flying weather for the mainland and the southeast for tomorrow. And then your turbulence for tomorrow, the focus will be across the southwest and all along the northwest and Arctic coastal areas, with moderate conditions expected across the Bering Strait and possible conditions below 6,000 feet across the southeast during the first half of the day. In just a moment, we'll be on with your marine forecast.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Cornfield. On behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to another edition of Hangar Flying. My guest this evening is Bud Hodson, owner of Tikchik Narrows Lodge. Welcome back to the show, Bud.
It's nice to be here, Ed. Thank you.
Last week we talked about the lodge and talked about pilots, hiring pilots, and that sort of thing. But let's have some flying stories. I always like those. You were flying along in your 206, looking out the window. When, and I'll let you finish.
When a loon came through my windshield.
And
it was like a bomb went off. And what happened was I went out for a reconnaissance flight. With my fleet of 4 airplanes, if weather's bad, I kind of like to go out, look around, and I can make a go, no-go decision. And so I was out flying around in pretty marginal weather by myself. And I was coming back along the AKwx River, and just right in front of me, 2 loons going this way. And so I turned and went this way, and one loon did like a 180 right straight into my windshield and missed the prop, which is almost unbelievable. And it just, the whole windshield just, and of course it was raining. Now I got wind and water on my face. Surprisingly, my GPS stayed on the dash because of the support bars for the 206. And so I throttled back, and I remember calling the lodge and telling Chip, I said, Chip, a loon just went through my windshield. And it was quiet, and he goes, are you okay? And I did this, I went, I was feeling for blood. I said, yeah, I guess I am. And I know now, in hindsight, what happened was, 206 has a bar right here, and the windshield wraps around, and if you're flying normally, you can't see out that way. So in marginal weather, I lean forward so I can look this way, so I say, well, I need to turn around, I got plenty of room. And my head was about that far below the dash. And when that loon hit, I ducked, or I would have had glass all through my face. And so the fact that I was leaning forward put me in a position to survive that. Then I had to go back and land, and I had no flaps. Flaps wouldn't work because the loon hit the back door on the 206 and jarred it. So the little micro switch didn't work.
wow. So describe, I did see a picture of the airplane after the loon hit it. Describe what it would look, or what it looked like if somebody were looking at it.
It looked like somebody was murdered in the plane.
Yeah.
The loon was there with feathers and blood everywhere.
And the windshield was, about half of it was gone, is that right?
Over half of it.
Over half of it.
And that was the other concern I had, because there were jagged edges in front of me, and I was trying to, I still had to look to see to fly, and the last thing I wanted was a piece of glass flying out of there, so I slowed up quite a bit. And I've been told that sometimes loons, it creates a vacuum in the airplane. It's really hard to fly the airplane. And I think because the loon hit the cargo door, it was jarred about that much. The air can come into the fuselage and had someplace to go.
Ah, that's a good part. So, let's just break from that for a second. What's the most favorite part of your job at Tikchik?
I think seeing the guests be happy at the end of a week, just the satisfaction of somebody coming to you and say, we had a fabulous time, thank you. That, and also I like to see my crew, especially young crew, develop, get through a summer, and watch them become more mature and just more worldly. I mean, talking to people from all over the world and participating in that type of environment.
So, any other exciting adventures in your aviation career, or any other good flying stories you can share with us?
Yeah, I got one that you helped me out with. I was at Tikchik on skis, and I had my caretaker pack down a runway with the snow machines. And when I was on that runway, it was rock hard. I could take your foot and you couldn't even go in 1/8 of an inch. And so I thought, well, heck, man, I'm gonna bring my 206 out, haul some cargo. And I told my caretaker to make it 500 feet longer. And so I brought my 206 out there, and he made it 500 feet longer. And when I flew over the lodge. I talked to him. He was on a handheld, and I said, "Is it hard?" He goes, "As hard as a rock." So when I came in, I landed, and my wheels went through the snow, and my nose wheel buckled. And what happened was, where the runway was, it was rock hard, but the 500 feet he added onto it wasn't. So it was my fault for not paying more attention and maybe trying to be a little bit bold. So that cost me a prop and a nose strut that you came out and helped me with.
Yeah, it was a
Yep.
good adventure for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have enough time for one more thought or story, but so you've been in business for a long time. You've done a lot of maintenance on your airplanes. Is there anything that you could pass on to the people out there that to maybe keep your airplanes maintained well, something that you'd like to something that you think you've learned over the years to help you do that, keep your airplanes in good shape?
In my case, it's just good maintenance. I mean, if I'm putting my life on the line every day flying these airplanes, I want them to be well maintained. Plus the downtime, especially when you're in business. I can't afford a Beaver to be down for a couple days. It just doesn't work. And so preventative maintenance is really important, and having a good mechanic is important. And the pilots need to be aware of their airplanes too. If you fly the same airplane every day, you get a feel for it. And they know when something's not right. So it's communication between the pilot and maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bud, thanks for joining us on Hangar Flying, and maybe we'll get you back another time. So folks, thanks for watching, and fly safe.
Welcome back to the show, and now on to your marine forecast. One thing to note about the ice across the Cook Inlet is a lot of melting has occurred across the last week, so just mainly along the arms of the inlet. And then the ice is along the coast, and it should start to grow through the weekend with the cold air coming through. Also, be aware the coastal areas, especially around Norton Sound, may be unstable for travel. So on to your southeastern forecast for Saturday. Mainly winds will be out of the south, small craft across much of the area between 25 and 30 knots. And then we do have a gale warning across the northern areas around 35 knots when you get up near Yakutat. Inner channels will see seas between 5 and 6 feet. The outer waters will be between 16 and 19 feet. Looking at your Sunday forecast, I think this would be the better day for your marine activities, as the winds will change out of the north direction across the inner channels until you get towards the Dixon entrance. Southeasterly stays there. All below small craft for your Sunday, and then a change of direction from south to north as you head up towards the northeastern Gulf coastal areas. Wind directions there, like I said, south to north. And then across the inner channels, seas will be between 3 and 4 feet. The outer waters will see mainly around 10-foot seas on Sunday. Now looking at your western Gulf coastal areas, you'll primarily have a southerly wind direction. Quieter winds for much of your day tomorrow, between 10 and 20 knots across the entire area, including Prince William Sound. Variable winds there, 2-foot seas. And then across the western waters, expect 10 to 11-foot seas. Across the Cook Inlet, 2 to 3 foot, with Barren Islands and Shelikof Strait right at 4-foot seas. And then your Sunday forecast, variable winds across the area between 10 and 20 knots, so all under small craft. Once again, 2-foot seas for the Prince William Sound, 7 to 8-foot seas across the western areas of the Gulf of Alaska, 2 to 3 foot across the Cook Inlet, and 3 foot near the Barren Islands and Shelikof Strait. Now for your Alaska Peninsula, small craft advisory for Bristol Bay on Saturday. Winds will be primarily out of the east and northeasterly directions. Seas across Bristol Bay, 6 to 9 feet, and then 9 to 10 feet across the Pacific. Looking at your Sunday forecast, a northerly flow across the area, 15 to 20 knots, 4 to 5 foot seas, Bering side, 6 to 7 foot on the Pacific side. Looking at your Aleutians, we'll see small craft across the eastern areas of the Aleutians for Sunday, primarily all out of the northwesterly direction, and the rest of the area between 10 and 20 knots. Seas will primarily be between 8 to 11 feet on Saturday, and then as we head into your Sunday, lighter wind speeds and all changing direction out of the south to southwest. Seas between 5 and 8 feet across the Bering and the Pacific for tomorrow. And then looking at your west coast, tomorrow being the most crucial day, 25 to 30 knots out of the northwesterly direction for most of the area. Seas will be between 8 and 10 feet, and then we'll also have some heavy freezing spray across the Bering Strait and the northern areas of the Bering, and along the coast, along the west coastal areas, be on the lookout for some freezing spray. Heading into your day tomorrow, sorry, the slide and got saved incorrectly there. And we will see a change of direction primarily for the Pribilof Islands out of the southwesterly direction on Sunday. However, the northern Bering will hang on to a north and westerly direction as this low pressure system moves to the north. On the Arctic coast and the northwestern areas, we'll see east to north winds on your Saturday forecast, so expect some gusty wind conditions all along the Arctic coast and back towards the Kotzebue Sound. For your Sunday forecast in easterly direction, not as strong, the winds between 15 and 30 knots across the area. Now let's take a quick look at your forecast for tonight. We have some rain and snow that's going to continue to move in across the southeast, and then a mix of rain and snow across the northern coastal areas with some light snow making it inland, except for the Copper River Valley, where they'll see some accumulations here between 2 and 4 inches tonight. And then along the northern coastal areas, be on the lookout for that blowing snow to continue through your Saturday. Low pressure is going to be migrating from Bristol Bay north towards the Bering Strait. Showery conditions across the Bering moving in along a front that's pushing towards the Alaska Peninsula. So we'll see that rain along the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island change over to a snow on Saturday, with showery conditions continuing across the Bering. Rain and snow mixes across the northern Gulf Coast, rain across the south, and then snow tapering off across the north and northwestern areas as the stationary boundary holds on towards the north. Heading into your Sunday forecast, probably the better day across the state, as we have some light precipitation in the forecast with some light rain showers in the southeast. I hope you have a good and safe weekend, and stay updated on our website at arh.noaa.gov. Have a great night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.